Good afternoon, it's a pleasure to be here. And I will try to give a presentation that has two parts. The first part is dedicated to what's happened recently in Latin America, to understand what is the situation in terms of different variables, what is trade, what is growth, what is social situation in the region. To understand particularly what was the recent cycle in the region in terms of welfare, if you want. The second part, what is the most heard of the presentation, is dedicated to the impact of the need, the urgent need that the region has to adopt new technology, particularly related to what is ICT, and impact of ICT in production and new platforms. And what is important to have in this moment is that the region has passed the recent years in a region that have growth, was quite good period, but after the crisis of 2008, the situation has deteriorated. And not deteriorating what's happened in Europe, that there is quite no growth at all, or what's happened in the United States after recent week after the crisis, the day after the crisis. But the region has reduced the average rate of growth, and today the situation is complex because the international trade market is complex, because there is no space for growth in export, because there is an important transformation of this new technology, because you know what is many people speak about what is stagnant situation in growth and productivity. And I want to begin with this picture. I know that my colleague from ITU tell me that here there is a number of academics people. And I think in that sense, I think this figure can be easily understood. This figure is to understand what is Latin America in the global context. You have on one side what is productivity. In the x-axis, you have social expenditure. You have what is the normal example that you have the countries on your right side, upstairs, you have what is north countries from Europe. And what is interesting to understand that this country has large expenditure and large social expenditure, that is particularly the public budget, but at the same time this country has very large productivity. What does mean that? That they have the capability to combine what is social expenditure and productivity. And you have in the middle countries like UK, United States, more Anglo-Saxon countries, where you have less expenditure in social expenditure and however has productivity. On the other part, more on the left-wing side, you have the Asian countries where you have high productivity, not so high as the Norwegian countries, but there is no social expenditure. You understand that there are different patterns of capitalism around the economy. But what is interesting here to understand where is Latin America. And if you can read this figure immediately, you understand that the productivity is not so high. But in many countries, social expenditure is high. That is not bad at all to have social expenditure. You have to understand it. You have social expenditure, that's important because you can support education, you can support health, you can support pension, everything that is fine on that sense. But however, on the other side, you have to sustain this social expenditure with high productivity. This is a problem of the region that have passed more than 10 years of this what's called super cycle of commodities, but the term of productivity didn't increase. That's an important point. There is similar problems in Europe too, because you take the case of Italy, France, Spain. Spain is growing is growing a little bit more today, but the other country has, of course, high social expenditure and low productivity. That is the reason that many of these countries introduce adjustment policy. But what is important is what is a problem of Latin America. The problem of Latin America is we need to increase productivity, okay? Because if the region doesn't increase productivity, we have a problem. Now, today, after this period that was a good period, what's happening with the region? World trade is not the same. International context, what we know clearly what's happened, it is a debate every day, we have a recessionary bias. excess of liquidity and insufficient demand. We have a structural imbalance. Take the case of Europe. Europe would like to export a lot. Domestic market in Europe don't increase, but every country wants to increase export. Where the countries are going to send their export? To China. China is not absorbing. Europe is not absorbing too much too. On the other side, Europe is in the recessionary situation. The domestic market doesn't increase. The other country, the only country that is absorbing a little bit is the United States. And there is an uncertainty. You can read the newspaper every year. If you came from Europe or travel to Europe, you understand what the situation we face immediately. And the region performance today has been affected, all of these variables, and the export of the region has decreased a lot. But we are going to see this figure one by one. Trade in the global context, there was a good period where trade growth more than the products. There was a long period of history where trade was a driver of growth. That's an important period. But recently, after the crisis of 2008, what's happening at the level of the world economy, we have a situation where trade has the same growth as products. More or less, that means that trade has a driver for growth. It's not working more, and it's not working more, and it's working in the normal situation, but it's not an advantage to increase export. Because there is, you can imagine this in small doors. They are every people in this room want to pass for that door. We remain there, blocked. It's not way because trade is not absorbing. You understand that? It's a complex situation. But all of the Latin American countries has a strategy for gross export. What has happened? Difficulties, problem. Other problem that is complex. Financial situation or real economy. If you want to speak about banks, derivatives, after the crisis 2008, if you want to speak about the real economy, you understand that derivatives, stock, increasing a lot, but the real economy doesn't increase. This is another message for the region. Today, you asking this question, why the exchange rate increased in different countries, was revaluated in different countries like Chile, Brazil. Of course, there is specific situation for this country, but what's happening really, there is an excess of liquidity in the world economy, affecting what? Exchange rate, affecting what's in Latin America? Competitiveness. And there is another important problem. There is an excess of utilization of capacity. The people that came from Europe, if there is some people in Europe, but the people you can read what's happening around the world economy, there is the debate about steel production in China, Who knows that there is a problem of excess of production. If you go to Brussels, there is enormous debate about that. If you go to Brussels, there is a lot of people that making a strike manifestation and have the excess of production. There is an economy that has excess of production. You understand? Trade is not a driver. What's happened there? Excess of liquidity, excess of production. The region is becoming a new process, is taking a process where the region finds a very complex situation. And these are the main results. Trade has decreased. This data is for 2015, but if we take the new data that we have for 2016, it's the same. Not at the same level because it's minus 4%, but today was about a very important decrease of this variable. What's happened really clearly that you can understand the performance of the region is complex. You understand what is? If you have the strategy of Latin American country, you want to increase growth in GDP, and you want to look for the external market. But the situation of the global market is not so brilliant. The situation of the global market is in quite recession condition. You have an excess of capabilities. At the same time, you have excess of liquidity. Where are you going to export? Difficulty. But you have to understand it's a complex situation, recession, and the region is not doing so bad, but what's happened clearly is that one specific historical period in the region has finished. You remember when the people say, don't worry, because Latin America is going to be a new long-term process for export natural resources. We are going to grow, and based on that, our terms of trade are going to increase. This is going to happen for more than 30 years. No. Doesn't happen. Doesn't happen because that period had finished. And now, don't take it more than 40 years, just take it only 9 years. If you can read about of countries, the decreasing of natural resources prices in terms of trade was generally very homogeneous. That has impacted. That has impacted because this is the result of the situation of the global economy. And the countries in the region have very specialized on natural resources. Natural resources, not complex natural resources. There is some complexity in some, but it's quite many cases raw materials. Soya bean in very natural state, or first primary start of production of copper. And the situation of the region is very complex indeed. In the global, not so bad, but complex. Intra-regional integration has decreased too. How many people speak about we have to have a region that can have more communication, more trade, more production. Sorry, but this is not working very much. But for us, it's a very important issue because, this is a situation where we have to be worried because the region, the scale of the region, is necessary to have a very integrated region because it's important scale. For example, very well to have a scale for ICT, for cloud computing, for standard, for quality. It's better to have an integrated region, or it's better to have a region that is separated and each country seems to be in a specific country. I think that it's important to have integration, but if we look at this data, the first point that we have on our view is that something happened. It's a complex situation. But rate of growth doesn't improve. It's not so bad compared with other countries, but it's not the rate of growth that the region need to be more inclusive in terms. And there is another important data that we worry about. This last 10 years was good because there was good term of trade, good export, good situation export of these products, and the region have decreased in poverty and have decreased a little bit inequality. That is quite good. But today, with this rate of growth, with this situation in trade, with this situation in the global economy, we are going to see again problem is reduction of poverty and reduction of inequality. Complex processes. But what we find here also is that in this situation, investment does not increase. Now, we are going to the new cycle. This new cycle is a cycle where the global situation that the region faces is a very complex, is a very recessive in this situation, and we have to rethink the strategy of the region to face a more inclusive process in terms of social terms, but in terms of growth too. Production, you know what is in terms, but we have this data, okay? These are really macro data, okay? Trade, investment, growth, and so on and so on and so on. But behind this process in the world economy, there is also a more important structural transformation. And this important structural transformation in the long term has to be with technical change. It has to be with an important new, what Chris Firman, Luc Sette, Giovanni Dosi call technological paradigm. ICT technological paradigm, and today this paradigm is deployed an important impact not only in terms of platforms, utilization, but it has an enormous impact on production. Because it's not only the case that you are, and you know better than me, production using this technology, is that the use of this technology modify the process of production, modify the layout of the plant. Is not more producing inside of the physical firm, but is creating network capabilities, more flexible way of production. The process is changing. And you know about what is this platform and the impact of this platform in terms of growth. Now, it's completely a new situation. Macro, structural and technological side, there is communication between both? Of course, there is. There is cases where one is an impact of the other, of course, because part of the employment or unemployment at the level of the global economy is related with the new technology, the impact of robotization, platforms, new service, and so on, and so on, and so on. Also, not in terms of quantity of employment or unemployment. It is important because it has an enormous impact on what is really associated today with the quality of employment and skills. Now, this is a transformation of the world. How the region face this transformation of this world? That is my question. We can rethink Latin America in the same way that we think in the last 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, or we have to rethink the region at the light of what is happening that is completely new in terms of production, mass production, and mega trends in technology. I think it is important to rethink about that. And the seminar that you are producing, you have here, but the seminar we have in ECLAC upstairs, we are working on this point because we tell to the government, please, you have to rethink that the economy is not the same. We have a digital economy. Production is different. Employment is different. Requalification is different. You can't rethink about natural resources in the same terms that you have thought, 20, 30 years ago. Natural resources is complex processes were used. Natural resources from new manufacturing, from sensing, from everything that is really using the cloud, a cloud with a protocol, with a standard. It's a process that is complex. You have producing natural resources in one way 30 years ago, today is completely different, and tomorrow is going to be completely different than it is today. Now, don't rethink the region in this term seems to be remain anchored in the very, very bad situation. And why this is important? Every variable that you can see here, you have export of good was good. You can see 2008 was good until 2008. The variable goes down after 2008, but don't increase. This is only one variable that increased at the same velocity is exponential variable. Which one is it? Is broadband, is technology, ICT, is what is related to this infrastructure. But the other variables around the world economy, as in if you look at this variable there, that's one. That's one. You can see that they are stopped, are not moving. But if you see what's happening with the broadband, look at that. My God. In that sense, you have a process that is very complex because you have this recession process, but there is a structural mega trend that is screaming like that. But there is not only a line. Behind this line, there is an important process that has to do with firms, skills, productivity, and so on. Don't look this line only has a line. Look behind that line. You understand what is the point? This line represents what is an important global structural transformation in terms of the mega trends and new technology. But the other variables that have to do with the macro situation, that they are doing quite well until the crisis of 2008. They moved it a little bit, today they are remaining like that. But the only one are the structural condition. Behind this line, everything is changed. The problem that we have to put in front of the region is say, the policymaker of the region, is you can remain, what we are going to do in this context? You are waiting that the price of commodity or the natural resources is going to increase again. We stay there. I hope that tomorrow increase the price. I hope that tomorrow increase the price. No, it's difficult because that is very passive policy. You need active policy. You have to understand what is happening behind this line. Understand what is the point? That's very important. It's not only a line. There is microprocesses, new type of frames, platform, everything that is behind that, the region has to be understood. Okay? And I want to repeat that. It's not only because if you need broadband is important to send the data. If you take production in the south of Chile, okay? You are producing there salmon, everything you are producing that is natural resources. And you want to follow this production of salmon or other type of natural resources. And you have to communicate the data from Chiloé, from that part of the world, to the Santiago, to other parts. You need broadband, you need velocity, you need to stay there, and you need the instrument to have that. Now, natural resources is not only natural resources. Natural resources today is natural resources plus new manufacturing based on digital. And this is an important point to understand, because if the region continues to think in that way, we have to wait the prices, to sit there, to take a mate, and we sit, look, we wait for another month if the prices are going to increase. This week is not like that. But I think it's important to have a very active policy. That is my point. And that is my provocative idea of we need to rethink the production of the economy in terms of digital economy. And we think that this is an important point. I want to, look, this is another transformation. If you can see about subscription of telephone, usage of internet, population that have access to the broadband, and so on and so on. That's numbers 5 years ago was 20, 30% less than today. And that is what is behind this line, you understand? That is what's happened behind this line. That's very important to understand that. Because behind this line, there is a process. But inside this, there is production, productivity, spice. Now, this word has to be really understood. Latin America is very good to use that. To Facebook, probably we are the better in the world. To use Facebook, to communicate with our friends, our lovers, and everything like that, we are the best. But we use Facebook for production, but honestly, we need to use mass Facebook for small and medium firms. We need to use technology for production and productivity, for specialization. For other things, for dancing, we are great. But we have to transform also these processes in not more user exclusively, but production, productivity, management. That is the point. And there is an enormous important experience in the region on that, okay? And that is necessary for public policy. But what is back, we are going back to this line, growing in broadband, and what is happening behind this is an important transformation. This is the capitalization market of different firms. Look at that. Who are the players? USA, Europe, little bit, Asia. If you compare these processes, this is the same debate about the trade agreements, because here you have different standards, different protocols, different processes, okay? And each of one, we want to establish and control the processes and decrease in return what is happening in the global economy. The people is not speaking about trade. The policymaker is not speaking about global trade agreement only because trade is beautiful or nice, because behind the agreement there is standards, standard protocols. For what? For digital data, for byte, for transformation. This is crucial. When you put cars and micro cars to one car that's self-driving cars, and you put this is a transmission of protocols. You transmit with where is the positioning, where the car moving, why, data, morals, and ethics of the cars. You understand that? That is completely changed. But it's important to understand that this generated richness. In this process, this generation of richness depends on the capability of creating this new firm. And here we have an enormous competition around the world from different standards. I can define North America and the States, others could be Europe, particularly Germany with the Internet 4.0, and the other one is China with the Pacific. And where is Latin America? Waiting for the prices. No, joking. But the game, but we have to put some, because you have to be more. But the necessary is to understand that, to have policy today on that. That's my worry. That is the seminar we're producing on that. I came from Europe too, and in Europe you need a lot on that, particularly Italy, my country. But okay, profit. Look what is profit. My God. You can understand where coming from profit for that. Profit is capability to, if you have more profit, you have probability of accumulation, growth, and so on. This is changing everything around there. What is you have in your mind is important. Macro situation, until the 2008 was quite good. Crisis 2008, variables began to be stable with recession context. And what is happening with trade, with growth, is difficult situation, uncertainty. There is only one variable that is moving a lot very fast, that is broadband. But behind broadband, we had different activity have to do with ICT. Particularly user, but more important information coming from the production side. This is because it's impacting Jobs, skill, capability, and so on. This is important. But it's not only in terms of this type of production. It's also important to understand what's happened there, because there is another important transformation that is profit, rent, and concentration processes. This is an important debate around the world. Okay? If you take the case of the United States and Europe about Google, Apple, Facebook, and everything like that, you think that there is not a debate? There is a debate. There are two patterns, different. One thing for the state is that you don't have to regulate anything, because don't regulate that, because you have to support innovation. Europeans said, no, we need to regulate it because your product is not more an innovative product, but produce impact on labor, fiscality, and so on and so on. There is an enormous debate on that. And this type of debate represents what is happening around the world, represent that, represent this, and represent what is a new network economy. It's not more market, but economy agents are related with the networking activities. You understand this platform, this process. And behind this networking process, there is concentration, rule. There is an enormous debate about that. When you say, for example, you say, of course, the United States, go about innovation, support innovation, create those capabilities to create innovation, that is working, because the United States created Google, Facebook, and so on. And that is good. European didn't create that, but they want to control. But the European has an enormous welfare system that the United States didn't have. And the European need a fiscality to support that. And where you take the fiscality in this case, or with this profit around the world, or this context where you don't have more tradable non-tradable products, this is complexity. This is the new economy. If you don't understand that, your policy action is going to be very weak, and you don't have capability to move in this economy. We want to push the ration on that. And if you go, this debate in Europe is a debate, because many people are thinking about what's happened there. If you want to take the debate in the United States, a completely different debate. But there is an important process to take in action on that. And look, and this is mega agreement in international economy, trade. Look this figure. I want to show this one now. Look this figure, competition in a standard platform, so on. Agreements. Competition in trade agreement. You understand that geopolitics process is very related to what is happening in this new economy. And this broadband that is moving on that sense, behind this line, there is micro, new technology, new film, new processes, trade agreement, and geopolitics. There is an enormous debate. If you don't understand that, if you don't understand this debate, your policy for growth and inclusion and welfare in the long term is going to be a failure. It's important to understand and to move in that sense. I think you know better than me, but it's important to speak about this industrial internet on new technology. This is going to be transform everything around the world about that, and clearly. And today, if you take trade, what do you think about trade? You think to take a trade, to take 1 kilo of apple and selling from South Africa to Rome and arrive 1 kilo for apple. And you think to put a container on that, and you create a container. But today there is an enormous byte, digital, moving around the world that is also trade. The structure of trade have changed completely. Today you have a lot of products that for international economy was non-tradable to tradable. Uber is a case. Taxi is a case. It's a complex process. We have to understand on that because it requires a lot of... And this is the first point. To move in this new technology that we can call the industrial internet or Internet of Things, of new manufacturing, put everything, are different, but we put in the same basket to give more larger the idea. We need a broadband that have to be very strong, okay? From broadband required for healthcare techniques, that is very high, to move on advanced manufacturing. Move advanced manufacturing is a new way of production. You understand how this, you don't have more a firm, a specific physical firm. You have centers that are moving and control production, control processes, control markets. And this is a mobile network where firms and people are moving with the flexible networks. It's an important thing, but you need a lot of stronger broadband on there. And the problem is that the region, and this is the process, the complex, this network is moving around different areas, and this is going to change more or less everything on that. The region. We are waiting for the prices. Now, 15 minutes, we are waiting that the prices of natural resources are going to increase, but they don't increase now. It's coming to increase the next year or the later. But we need to move in the things. We need to move because if you want to maintain more inclusive economy with better equality, with better social inclusion, really we need to understand this type of new digital economy. To understand the new type of digital economy according to what is our insertion in international context and what is our production capabilities. Now, we think there is an important issues where we can have urbanization in the region. You have traveled to Sao Paulo, Mexico City, today Santiago. I tried to move it yesterday here in San Jose. To arrive to the faculty there was a disaster. And now I think about the smart city, of course. It's an issue. Environmental and energy crisis, smart grid is another one. Digital health, you can understand regions, countries like Brazil, Chile, that is a long country from one side to the other, that you have to use this structure infrastructure. It's becoming really important thing. There is an enormous opportunity, but you need to rethink about that and to put resources on that. This is the structure of the region, and it's not bad because the access of the region has improved a lot. We have a document produced from ECLAC. I don't know if you can ask to ECLAC, we have to send, that access has improved a lot. There is inequality inside countries, inside regions, but access has improved a little bit. But however, access is more based on user than production, how we said before. And we need more speed connection. Clearly, to have that, we need to improve infrastructure a lot. Many of these processes need to work with 5G. And it's difficult for 4G in many parts. We need this is a policy that the region needs a push, needs to support, needs to increase, needs to be an important part of not only thinking about production policy and technological policy and telecommunication process. It's a policy that is required to sustain social inclusion and equality. If we don't have implemented the thing, we can have this infrastructure. It's very difficult to go to production, internet, and so on. The digital legal, we have two data that's very interesting. This is sensors, and this is robotics. In sensors, per habitant, look how we increase in the United States, and look how we increase it in Europe. It's become an important part of the process. Sensors, you know what it means to have a sensor. You are university, probably many of you are technicians. Sensor is the part that communicated in ICT with one machine with the other, or the machine with the computer, or the machine, and that's require protocol, cloud computing, and everything. Sensor is an indicator that you are coming into this new economy. And we need to move a lot on that, because how it's moving the state, how moving Europe, the case is very interesting, and we need to clearly push on that. And that is important for all processes of production around the region. Robotics. This is per 2000, Korea. My God. The new policy of Denmark on robotics and new sensor. Say the Denmark, that is a country where you have a good welfare. say, no, we need to introduce more robotics, more automation, more ICT, because to maintain the welfare in the long term, we need to be the more competitive, more network. Only in this case, we can maintain that. Use robotics, use new technology to maintain welfare. You understand what is happening around the world? It's going to be an enormous competition on that. If many of the countries are going to introduce robotics in the United States or another country, what is going to happen with the maquiladora industry in the Central America? You understand what is important to rethink about that? Of course, this is affecting jobs. And you know the different parts of creating job. What is happening in the first case that could be represented by Amazon, the central cast industrial, the other one by Uber, are different. But what is changing is the way that the skills are required and produced. It's completely different. Okay? Behind this, there is policy of fiscality, regulation, and welfare, of course. But we have to put clearly in which world we are going to have to go into them. This is a joke. How changing the job, how changing the skills. It's completely changing. It's a new way. And I want to conclude to have time for debate. And this presentation is a presentation to put attention. This presentation is to say to the region, we have to be very careful of what's happening around the world. This presentation is a presentation that says, is coming the new world. In this new world, digital economy is going to be the platform. We can rethink at the economy, at the economic system in the same way what we have thought, you know, the last 60, 100 years. It's another way. It's another process. Okay? It's more intangible economy. It's more byte. It's more new type of have jobs. It's instantaneous communication. It's new way to produce. Okay? It's more flexible job. It's a job that requires another skills. Skills that have not designed by the university too. Okay? The university have to rethink the skill, the new type of skill that are required in this economy. This is going to be so enormous impact that countries or policymakers that don't take this in consideration and don't take this aspect for the future thinking is going to be countries that can to be, you know, in the stagnant situation for many, many years. It is important to understand that. I don't tell him that Latin America has to produce sensors. I don't tell him to you that Latin America has to produce robots. I tell him to you that Latin America has to understand how this works. It has to be used and modified to create a process of production that has to be competitive for the region. I'm saying that, no, to create what the others have created now. But to adapt, to use, to implement these processes, we need public policy. But not only public policy. We need a debate and dialogue between public policy and private sector. That is very important to support firms, to support investment in this area. Concluding, I think that is coming a new era in the region. Many times I think that we have lost 10 years. The economy growth, but we don't take all of the advantage of these processes, using the resources to reconvert our economy. And today we are in a situation that the economy is not growing at the level that we need to create more inclusion. To support this process of growth, we need to rethink a new type of process of production, according to what the region is about, okay? And I think this is the important message. Today there is a debate in Europe about the minimum wage. Why there is a debate about the minimum wage? Because the people is thinking about what's happened with the new labor, a new situation in labor market, because this new technology is changing job, they introduce a more flexible market and so on and so on. We need something to create a demand. Google say that they agree with the minimum wages. Many policymakers, they say that we need a minimum wage. Why? Because we need demand. If you don't have this minimum wage, who is buying what? You understand that the process is changing. The debate is completely different. Regulation. Regulation is another important thing. You can maintain in Europe the social in public health if you don't have taxes, revenue taxes? How? In this new process of production is completely different, where I take the taxes. It's network, it's intangible, it's not more the film. It's difficult to understand who is the owner, where stay. There is an important debate that came in. There is the debate that Europe is putting on the first line, and there is a debate between this area and the state. I don't tell you that one is better than the other. It's not my role, and I don't want to do that. But what I tell you only that Latin American and the Caribbean have to think at these new processes. And that's important to understand that ICT is the baseline for that. And during this process is the mega trends that is going to influence everything around the world. And this region can remain like in before if this region don't take in consideration this new variable and new economy. Thanks very much.